Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Los Angeles-based jazz singer Amber Weeks on the new COVID-19 quarantine world. She talked about her projects and her hope for the future and some topics in between. It was a good one. Enjoy.
Surviving out here in Kansas City. How you holding up?
So far, so good.
Good.
So far, so good.
Have things gotten better out there as far as the curve and flattening, all of that?
Well, no.
Okay.
It's still, we haven't hit the peak quite yet.
Gotcha. And I guess that's kind of where we're at, too. We're waiting for that to hit, and then hopefully the numbers will start going down and there's going to be better news.
Yeah. And of course, nobody knows how long that's going to be. I've had so many gigs cancel, or postpone, with no date, So like everybody else, I'm just waiting to see what happens. In fact, I was talking to somebody in Vegas who wants me to come, but of course they don't know when.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah,
and I've been hearing from a lot of musicians that things this summer aren't going to happen. There's nothing that's definite right now. The only thing that I've gotten that's been definitive in Kansas City is on May 3rd there might be some places that start opening, and then by May 15th the stay-at-home order is lifted. But
really,
yeah, that's what they're saying for us. For the governor has laid it down, but what that's going to translate to will be a whole other story. But at least there's going to be some semblance of daylight, because we haven't really heard anything at all as far as the definitive. And I think that's the part of this that's very strange. There's so much indefinite that goes into all of this,
Yes.
So, but I have been reaching out to publicists and musicians to kind of see if I can talk to people. This is a rather extraordinary time for all of us on the planet, and I think it's probably good to have a minute to just kind of talk and reflect. And you had mentioned that you had some stories that you wanted to impart, so that's why I wanted to reach out to you and check in and see kind of what's going on. Sure.
What I'm trying to do as best as I can is continue to keep people working. I was working on having my album, my very first one, remixed and remastered, because it was done 20 years ago. And so I've committed to having that done while we're going through this. In addition to that, I had started my my holiday album, and so we're trying to figure out how to do that in this space where we can't be together but still get the work done, because people need the work.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm thinking about doing is some of my friends have been, or I should say colleagues, are doing things on Facebook and that sort of thing. I'm all by myself, and I'm a perfectionist, so I've tried to figure out how to do it right and well, So one of the things I'm thinking about doing, you tell me what you think, is at least maybe for the next 2 Sundays, doing a Sunday night lullaby.
Yeah.
Where I go on to Facebook and I just do one song and I do it a cappella and something that's appropriate as a lullaby.
Absolutely.
And I had read something somewhere, and I can't remember where now because it's been some time, that a lot of people, like, the most difficult night of sleep for them is Sunday night.
Interesting.
Because they're gearing up for the work week.
Yeah.
And people some people are still working. They're working at home, and and then the kids are supposed to be in school online, and how you have 5 kids or whatever, all trying to use one computer to get their schoolwork done, I have no idea. But I can see where there would still be stresses as you're going into Monday morning, and so I'm thinking of doing a Sunday night lullaby at 8:45 Pacific time, for the
That's
next
wonderful.
Sundays, and then which means I better post it on Facebook if I'm going to do it, and then the other thing that I'm considering is that there are a lot of people who are spectators of music and other arts and don't really see themselves as being creative beings. But I think we're all creative beings.
Yeah.
And, I've done several interviews since you and I spoke, and my interview with you is still my favorite.
Oh, well, thank you.
and you actually gave me something to chew on that I'll never forget. And you said to me something like, okay, to your fans, you're whoever you are, and to your family and your friends, you're whoever you are. Who do you say that you are? And my response was that I want to be the source of divine female healing energy.
Yeah.
And I meant it when I said it. I just had never said it before. But what I'm considering doing also is offering on Zoom like an Artist Way group. Which, are you familiar with the book?
No.
Oh, okay. Julia Cameron is James Cameron's sister, and she is a writer. And she wrote a book in the 90s called The Artist Way.
Okay.
And if I could find my copy.
And what's her name? Julie?
Julia Cameron.
Julia Cameron. Okay.
Yes.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, Julia Cameron, The Artist Way. And the subtitle is something, oh, here it is, I found it. Okay. I love this. Okay. So, in The Artist Way, a spiritual path to higher creativity.
Yeah.
Okay. And what it is it's a 12-week program inside of a book that gives the reader, and I would say the participant, access to their own source of creativity.
Right on.
And I really, I read the book sometime shortly after it came out. I'd never finished it, or I didn't finish it at that time, but January of 2019, when I knew that I was going to be working on Pure Imagination, I felt like it was a good time to revisit the book and to ask some of my friends to join me in actually doing the exercises of the book and committing to the 12 weeks. And I had no intentions of facilitating it. I did provide the space because everybody met here with me at my place. But I've found such a tremendous gift in experiencing the book with other people, and I see this particular time in our history as what I call everybody's Superman moment.
Yeah.
Okay, and so do you get the reference?
Yeah,
you remember?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the ice cave and okay. So this is our ice cave, and so I think like a tool like the Artist Way would be a great tool for people to use in having their Superman moment and being able to go, within in a creative way in an exploratory way to then emerge being their most powerful selves. When we're all able to join together, they would be able to provide their highest self or their highest self in that moment as a result of maybe excavating some things or accessing some things that they didn't know, things that weren't possible, they didn't know were possible for themselves.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm, that's what I'm playing with right now.
Wonderful.
My hesitance with regard to the Artist Way is really it only works when you have a small group, and I would want to honor that because it just becomes untenable otherwise, and you really have to be able to create a safe space with people. But I would be willing to extend myself and create like a Zoom group for it of maybe 9 people.
Yeah.
And, as far as I know there's the Zoom bombing, but I think Zoom would be a safe space so that if somebody I didn't know who knows me as an artist or doesn't know me as an artist but heard about it, could join a group and create something. So those are the things that I'm looking at.
That's wonderful. And I do believe in what you're saying about people being a creator, whether it's something that people would consider high end. I think it's very important for people to create. In fact, I remember reading an article years ago that nursing homes that seniors that do artwork, it enhances their existence and it prolongs their life. It's very, very defined that's the way it works in the brain. They were showing some scans and just the way that pleasure and endorphins releasing and all of that, it's huge. And I think that people, disregard the fact that they can create just because it's either hard or it's something they don't do, but anybody can do it. I mean, you can get a piece of chalk and go out to the driveway and, draw something out or whatever you want to do, however you want to do that. But I think that's a wonderful idea. I think the lullaby is a wonderful idea too. And I think all of these collective efforts are going to be very necessary. And as we've seen during this time, the one thing that is saving us is art, visual, music, TV, film. All of that is something that, when you're inside, you can't do a whole lot. Books are art. There's so much good that's coming from art that I think we're going to really have a new appreciation, hopefully, and maybe it'll create. There was a young cat that I talked to in Ohio that's releasing his first album, and he told me something that blew my mind. And he was saying, maybe in jazz this will create a new idiom, because when Dizzy and Miles and all of those cats got together, it was during a time of high racism, recovering from a world war, and things that were totally full of tumult. And they created something that wasn't going to be commercialized. It came out of their soul, and it came out in a very pure way, and it changed the world.
Yes, that's a great point.
And I think these things that you're talking about and the collective body of artists that are out there, I think that's going to happen. The other thing I think that might be interesting that's going to happen out of this is that I think, and this is probably a little closer to home with you living in Los Angeles, I think there's going to be a lot of actors and musicians that have a lot of money that finally have the chance to hang out with their families that may not resurface after this. They may be content with letting art, kind of take a side note to what they're doing.
Yes.
Because they don't have to worry. They're not worried about. They won't have to worry about money. And I'm talking about big time people. They don't have to be on a timetable of making an album every whenever. They don't have to be on a tour thing. They actually legitimately get to be with these people that they don't ever get to see. And I think that's something we're going to see out of this potentially. That's been something I've been thinking about. So. But it's yet to be seen how all of this will play out. But at any rate, I think the creative output that you're going to put out there, that's wondrous because it's therapeutic and it's really, really it is. It's creative, but it's therapeutic. I think it's going to be wonderful.
Thank you.
But yeah, thank you for reaching out. Sure. And I do want to ask one more question of you.
Sure, of course.
So, we're going to get to a point where this will be over with, and we're going to return. Musicians will return to the stage, and fans will return to the crowd. What do you hope during this time what revelation do you hope we all get collectively as we go back?
That we never take each other for granted. That the simplest of things that human beings give to each other, the sense of touch, the opportunity to have eye contact, the opportunity to be in the same space and just share the energy of another person. I hope that we never ever take that for granted again, because I'm here by myself, and it's not fun, you know. It's not. And listen, I live, unlike a lot of people. I live in a safe area. I live in a space that I really enjoy. That's very, very peaceful. Things would have to get pretty serious for me not to be able to eat, you know. And so just the basics of human contact and having our needs met if our needs are met, those things, and then being more benevolent to each other and having a deeper connection to each other and a level of compassion that in recent times I don't see as much as I wish I did.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a reboot. This is a way for all of us to kind of reevaluate, look at things, and hopefully things can get healed, forgiven, and reappreciated, because this is a huge. The unique thing about this is it's the whole globe. This isn't like we're so used to the myopic notion that it's one continent or one country, and we're very centric in America with that notion. But the fact that everywhere around the world is going through the exact same thing, I mean, that's a massive reboot.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's no. It's funny. I was in Florence 3.5 years ago, and I had this is my life story. I was alone, but but I had a fabulous time, you know.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the pictures the other day, and I thought, oh, I can go to Florence, and I thought, you stupid fool, you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do that. Yeah. It's very humbling. What are you doing to keep yourself going?
You know, breaking the day up, so to speak. It feels like it's been a long, long time. We've been just about a month into it, and it's weird because I think back to March 13th, and it's one of those perennial dates that I think about with not only our world, but with jazz musicians. And I'm hearing a lot of interesting stories of people that were literally on an airplane on the tarmac at LAX, and they just stopped and said, we got to get off. Had a musician from London that was getting ready to do his first gig in New York, and they literally cut the mics and said, we're done. He was debuting and he was getting ready to go on.
Yeah. I took my time in doing my release event, and I did it the end of February. So it was, and I was dating somebody, and Corona's kind of killed that. Because we live 100 miles apart, and he's taking care of his mom.
Yeah.
So but in any event, he and I went on a cruise in February. So we on one of the same boats that wound up being like held over in LA's port, like a month later, and then my release event was the end of February, and had it been like just a couple weeks later, I would have had to have canceled it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. We've been thinking here in Kansas City, if the Chiefs win in the Super Bowl, they said that if San Francisco would have won, it would have been very, very bad because a lot of people would have been out celebrating. So again, as if Patrick Mahomes, as if Patrick Mahomes needed another reason to be deemed a wonderful human being. He saved a bunch of lives and on the West Coast. So yeah, but all of those scenarios as they unfold are very interesting. So, but at any rate, Amber, thanks for reaching out. Stay safe and good luck with everything.
You too. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest singers in Los Angeles, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Amber for her time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.